We got a book from an obscure French-Canadian author, Everyman Today
Oh,
Call Rome by
my first child.
yes, Charles Coulombe. This is the book that put Charles on the map. How old were you when you wrote this book, Charles?
I was 24.
Wow.
And gentlemen, and I say gentlemen because I've been told how pitifully small our female audience is. Gentlemen, this book I wrote for you when I was one. That's right. When I was one of you, going through what you're going through this very moment, I wrote this book for us. Me as I was then and my peers. You now. I
Yeah, what? So you're a go-getter. You're gonna take on the world, naively idealistic. You're gonna change the world by just telling the truth. Crusader
with my
mentality
pen.
with your
Da-da,
pen. The pen.
da-da,
The pen is mightier than the
da-da.
sword.
That's right.
And now, like everyone else, you're just sort of jaded and
I'm,
cynical.
I'm an old sellout.
You're
No,
old.
that's not entirely true, actually. I may be jaded, but I'm not cynical.
Mm.
And the truth of the matter is, I still believe that telling the truth has a power of its own. For you, firstly, because to reaffirm the truth is to strengthen it in your own heart. For those who hear you, whether they agree with you or they don't, and for those who punish you, it has an effect on everyone. So I can well say that in rereading the book, as I did a couple of years ago, I wouldn't change anything. The older and wiser Charles may be older, but he's not wiser.
Yeah, you really vent on a lot of things. I think a lot of people can relate. You're frustrated with a lot of things, and it just
Well,
the
and
zeal, the
also,
zeal just pours out of you in this one.
well, and I've often had people say to me, "Why aren't you like that now?" And my answer is because I'm not 24 now.
Yeah, you mellowed out.
I don't know if mellowed is exactly what I would use. The thing is that if you're going to go for the long haul, you've got to save your energy.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You've
So
got to, if
otherwise,
you
you're gonna
don't want
burn
to,
out.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And something I learned in journalism from, of all people, a fellow called Jeff Dietrich, who runs the LA Catholic Worker to this day and has been running it since the 60s. Now, stop and think. Running a soup kitchen in downtown LA every day, dealing with the down and out since 1967, and never seeing improvement. If anything, seeing things get worse. So I asked him about 20 years ago how it is he didn't burn out. And he said something I've never forgotten. He said, if you do this kind of thing, and by this kind of thing, I don't just mean running a soup kitchen, but doing whatever apostolate the faith calls you to, whatever it may be, whether it's fighting for the faith or helping the poor or some combination of the two, like the Knights of Malta used to be until they lost their Grand Master. Um, if you do this sort of thing because you think you're going to make a difference, you'll burn out. If, on the other hand, you do it because it's what God wants you to do, it's what He made you to do, like breathing and eating, then you will persevere. I don't think, actually, ladies and gentlemen, that I have lost my zeal. I do think I've learned how to harness it for the long haul. But it was definitely necessary when I was that age that I had the level of zeal I had. And that's the important thing. Since most of you listening to me now are under the age of 35, I may have said this before, but I'll say it again, bears repeating. You're filled probably with a great deal of zeal right now, a great deal of righteous anger, a great deal of zip and energy. And that's good. You should go out feeling that you can conquer the world. Because if you do, you may not really conquer the world. but you go a long way toward accomplishing what God has in mind for you to accomplish. If you were to approach life the way someone my age would, you'd accomplish nothing. So use that zeal, draw your swords, lower your lances with the fluttering banners. Drive into the tournament of life as hard as ever you can. You're going to get knocked around, you'll receive some blows, and that'll continue as long till you're my age and beyond, as long as you live. But the further you go in the first flash of your youth and zeal, well, the further ahead you'll be when it comes time to consolidate and move forward in a more measured manner. Don't burn out, gentlemen. Don't burn out. Don't despair. Don't expect to see immediate changes from your work, because you never will. But strike as though you were going to. Or, as a very old lady said to me once, pray as if everything depended upon God, and work as though everything depended upon you.
You mentioned the long haul. We've never talked about this, so it's going to require dissection on my part of your method. But I've inferred from your method that you don't believe there's going to be much change during your life, and that the real power that you have, the real impact you can make, is by helping form the next generation, and they are going to be the ones where there can be big change. So I've always figured, I don't think you actually expect change during your lifetime. Am I totally wrong on this, or somewhat close?
No, I think you're right. I mean, also, it's not entirely conscious, and has not been entirely conscious on my part. It's just that, as you go through life, things change ever so slightly. But they keep changing ever so slightly. And then one day you wake up and, my gosh, it's a decade and a half since this and that. You're here when you were there, and so forth. Now, I don't expect any major change, but I've already seen quite a few. Since that book was written, communism fell. The Tridentine Mass became freely available in my part of the world, anyway. Gay marriage came in. Abortion became sacramental, the whole gender confusion thing. I mean, since the boy who wrote that book had no idea of what the next 35 years held. And now, at the grand old age of 58, if I were to live another 35 years, which is very hard for me to believe, I'd be 93, which is younger than my grandfather when he died, so maybe I'll make it. But I do expect there'll be a great deal of change in that time. But I don't know of what kind. I don't know if I'll see it. I've had friends my age popping off right and left recently. It's a classmate of mine from Northridge just bought it a couple of weeks ago. Massive heart attack at his restaurant. Italian fellow from Portchester, New York. Anyway, but they've just been popping off. And my father used to say, when you get to a certain age, it's like playing a game of 10 Little Indians. First this one's gone, then that one's gone, then the other one's gone, then the other one, and then one day it's you. And I will say also that, as an example, the man who taught me how to write at New Mexico Military Institute, Mr. Carl Van Horn, was my age exactly when I first met him. My age now. And we were born on the same day, November the 8th.
Wow.
This is born in 1921. Or no, he was born in 1920. That's right. So he was exactly 40 years older than me. So if Mr. Van Horn were alive now, he'd be 98.
Hmm.
So I mention all this because, yeah, my supposition is that whatever it is I got to give, I got to get it out before I pop off, and that will be the part I'll play. I don't know, of course, if that's true. I could pop off tomorrow, in which case whatever we got out there is what we got. Or I could live quite a long time and perhaps even take a small part as far as infirmity would allow me in the events of the day. But I have no control over that. I used to dream of contributing to the end of communism. It did it without my help.
Hmm.
And I didn't do anything to bring back the Tridentine Mass other than to pray hard for it. Same for the beatification of Emperor Karl, whom I'm writing about right now. These are all things I wanted desperately, and they all happened. And yet the world is still in worse shape than I remember. So it's a game of blind man's buff. You do the best you can. You do what your duty requires out of you, and you just keep doing it.
Hmm.
And then one day, you wake up and you see your dad staring at you from out of your bathroom mirror. You wonder how he got in there.
Okay. Well, it somewhat leads into one of the quotes I wanted to touch on in the book. One of my favorite quotes in the book, which is, you say, "We're going to spend more time dead than alive."
It's true.
And so we owe it to ourselves to do the math on this thing. If we haven't sorted out our spiritual life, our religious beliefs, or whatever, you owe it to yourself, because you're going to be dead much longer than you're going to be alive.
That's for sure. And gentlemen, of course, the ghosts gather round this close to St.
Mm.
John's Eve. But, gentlemen, at your age, although I presume you're listening to this, you have some interest in these things, but at your age, my age seems a million miles away, and death a million miles beyond that. Take it from me, they're not. They're very close. Death, in fact, is closer to you than age. So, get yourself ready. Get yourself in order. I mean, when I was about 14, there was a big deal in the LA of the day about a fellow called Hal Lindsey and his book, The Late Great Planet Earth. And there were signs and wonders and prophets everywhere. So I asked my confessor, the late James Francis Garland McIntyre, what he thought about all this stuff. And his response was that the world would end someday, but no man knows the time, the day or the hour. But one thing we know for certain is that each of our own worlds are going to end, and probably sooner than the end of the world. But, said he, if you are ready for the end of your world, you'll be ready for the end of the world if it comes in your time.
Hmm.
And that's about the wisest advice on the end of the world I ever heard.
Yeah, that mentality is very contagious. You said that in your talk with Professor Biersack on Doomsday,
Yeah.
and I like that because we don't need to worry about prophecy anymore. We all have our own doomsday. We all have our own. We have to get things in order for our own thing,
Well,
for our own life.
St. Aloysius Gonzaga, who was a young Jesuit novice, was playing tennis at the seminary. And during the intermission, one of the other kids asked him, what would you do if I could tell you absolutely that the world was going to end tonight? And his response was, well, the first thing I do is finish this game.
Okay.
So if this is the world's last night, if this is it, if we're not going to make it to St. John's Eve, if the dawn isn't going to break again, then, ladies and gentlemen, prepare.